Hello and welcome back to Hey Job Picks. I'm your host, founder, editor, and producer Hayden Iverson. Today we're going to be looking at the UFC 277 card, Peña versus Nunes 2, and Brandon Moreno versus Kai Kara-France 2. This fight will be taking place in Dallas, Texas. I'm filming this on Monday, July 25th, because I will be traveling my way down to Texas tomorrow night. Not going to see the fights, unfortunately. Just going down there for a little vacation, then heading over to Florida. But just want to let you guys know that because most of the lines for the props are not out yet, so I won't be able to give any insight to those. But we will get right into it, starting with the main event, the rematch of the biggest upset of all time, in my opinion. Last December, Juliana Pena defeated Amanda Nunes. Amanda Nunes was a minus 1,125 favorite in the last fight. And she was on a 12-fight win streak that was snapped by Juliana Pena. And really, Pena weathered the storm in the first round. And then in the second round, she kind of turned it up, and once she was able to land her jab at a very high volume, very high rate, she kind of took over that fight and pushed it, made it a dog fight, and ultimately, in my opinion, made Amanda Nunes kind of tap out. Really, she did tap, but mentally tap out too, because was the choke sunken in? Didn't really look like it too much, but nonetheless, she tapped out and kind of quit. When you're on a 12-fight win streak, it's pretty easy to overlook your opponents, and I think that is exactly what happened. There was rumors that she didn't look as motivated in her camp by people that were at American Top Team, and ultimately she paid the price for it. These two were the coaches on The Ultimate Fighter this past season that just wrapped up. And to be honest, I gained a lot of respect for Juliana Pena, not just because of winning the fight, but watching The Ultimate Fighter. You could tell that this woman is just a badass woman, and she's going to come to fight every time she's out there. She's going to come to compete in anything she does. And I can't really say the same for Amanda Nunes. Don't get me wrong, obviously a great competitor, but not as vocal about it, not as just not as motivated, I guess. It seems like Juliana Pena always has something to prove, whether she has something to prove or not. She has a chip on her shoulder, and now that Amanda's been saying that the belt isn't actually hers, and that it was a fluke, I feel like gives her a little bit more motivation in Juliana Pena than just to win the first fight and then come back and try to defend yourself. Now it feels like she has to go for it again to prove herself again. But overall, I would say Nunes is obviously the more talented fighter. It's just it's hard to pick against either of them, I would say, in this point of their career, having seen all the stuff that Juliana Pena has shown us about her mentality. It's very hard to pick against someone that has that kind of mentality, but at the same time, it's very hard to pick against what would be considered one of the greatest women's fighters of all time. Nunes is sitting at a minus 300 favorite right now. Juliana Pena plus 240. The lines have obviously shrunken a lot since the last fight. But Nunes still a pretty heavy favorite. I feel like you got to go with Nunes, just for the fact that she's been great for so long, and maybe she had that slip up back in December. But at the same time, I could definitely see Juliana Pena coming out and making it a dogfight again and pushing the pace on her, taking her into waters that she doesn't want to be in, and and pulling it off. But for the sake of the channel, I'm going to take Amanda Nunes. I don't have any bets on her at the moment. Maybe I would look at some props when they come out. I know the over-under in the fight is set at 2.5, which seems, there's Amanda Nunes has a number of first-round finishes on her record, especially in title fights. I think about half of them she's finished in the first round. But it's hard. I feel like it's going to be hard to put away Juliana Pena. And at the same time, I feel like Juliana Pena is not going to be able to make her quit as easily this time if she is able to push that pace and make it a dogfight. So that's a little bit juicy to think about the over 2.5 there. Maybe look at that towards the end of the week. But on a Monday, I've been working a lot, getting these videos out to you, with the recap one of UFC London. Go check that out. And then, doing my due diligence to, get my picks and predictions on, this card. So I haven't had a ton of time to really figure out where I want to put my money this week, but I will be giving out a lot of these picks, or a lot of my bet picks on my TikTok at HeyJivePicks. So if you're interested in what I'm betting on, I would go check that out. Moving on, next fight, Brandon Moreno versus Kai Kara-France. Also a rematch and also for a title, flyweight title. Brandon Moreno is coming off the trilogy with Deiveson Figueiredo, 1-1-1. Arguably won the last fight. It was a decision win, went to Deiveson Figueiredo. Moreno was somewhat of a heavy favorite in that one. I had Figueiredo in that last one. I think he was like plus 180 or so, or plus 160 around that. I cashed that, and then I also had Brandon Moreno in the one that he subbed him. So I guess I'm decent at picking Brandon Moreno fights, but he's only getting better. He's only 28 years old. He's got that Mexican chin on him. Never been knocked out. Never been finished overall. 3 KOs, 11 subs. As for Kai Kara-France, 29 years old. One of the better strikers in the division out of City Kickboxing. His last fight against Askar Askarov, I was actually in attendance there at UFC Columbus, and he showed really good takedown defense and submission defense. He had Askar on his back for quite some time, was able to fight him off there. In my opinion, in a 5-round fight with Brandon Moreno, for him at least, I feel like he's going to need a finish. If you look at the previous fight with them, it was quite some time ago, but Brandon Moreno not necessarily put too much of beating on him, but if you were to give him another 2 rounds, it was a 3-round fight the first time around. But if you were to give him 2 more rounds, I feel like he probably would have pieced him up, kept piecing him up. Kai's face was pretty battered in. But not to say, in the first round of that fight, Kai Kara-France dropped him, not completely, but hit him with a couple good shots. It wasn't, it wasn't too uncompetitive, but it was clear that Brandon Moreno won that fight. But both fighters have made a lot of improvements since then. Moreno sitting at minus 200 right now. Kara-France at plus 170. Like I said, I feel like Kara-France probably needs a finish in this fight, and with Moreno never having been finished, I don't think it looks too great for him. But I wouldn't, don't doubt the kid too much. I mean, he's shown he's up with the top of the division in his past 3 fights. And for the sake of the channel, I'm going to take Brandon Moreno for my pick. If this fight hits the ground, then it's going to heavily favor Brandon Moreno. Kara-France got to keep it standing. And ultimately, he's got to keep it within boxing range. If you allow Moreno to kind of jump around on his feet, he's very, very quick on his feet, in and out I don't see it going too well for him, for Kai Kara-France. So give me Brandon Moreno in that one. Next fight, Derek Lewis versus Sergey Pavlovich. Derek Lewis coming off of the loss to Tai Tuivasa. Pretty nasty elbow. And then his one before that, he knocked out Chris Daukaus, which is, decent win. And then before that, losing to Cirogan via TKO, which Cirogan does not really KO or TKO many people. So to me, and really throughout his career, Derek Lewis has shown that if he's getting a beating on him, he will kind of tap out or check out, I guess you would say. At 37 years old, you got to kind of question where his head is at and where he thinks his career is going to go from here. If he's just taking fights for the money of it, or to just, who knows? Who knows where he's at? Having lost to Tai Tuivasa and now getting taking a step back here with Sergey Pavlovich in terms of rankings. As for Sergey Pavlovich, 30 years old, had a very impressive fight in his last fight, coming off of a 2.5 years off layoff. Looked like he made a lot of improvements. He's out of Eagles MMA, so he's obviously getting some good training. That's Khabib's team there. But he's sitting at 12 KOs. I would probably look at Pavlovich by KO in this one. But for some reason, I feel like maybe Sergey would want to wrestle him because Derek Lewis is the knockout king in the UFC, and maybe he doesn't want to sit in the pocket with him or try to trade with him. Maybe he wants to just take him down and lay on him. So that's a little sketchy in my opinion, but he hasn't really shown he's going to do that too much. But I do have – the only play I have at the moment is Sergey Pavlovich on the money line. I put in about a week ago at plus 105. So since then, the line has moved in his favor. That's, like I said, that's the only play I have at the moment, just because I'm kind of looking to fade Derek Lewis in the near future, depending on the opponent. But just don't know where his head is at, and seems like he's just willing to quit. And Pavlovich, a good power puncher, much younger. I'm going to go with the younger fighter. So give me Pavlovich in that fight. Moving on, Alexandre Pantoja versus Alex Perez. For Alex Perez, he's coming off almost a 2-year layoff. He has had fights scheduled, but just hasn't been able to get the fight done. I think he's had 6 fights booked, and all were canceled, dating back to May of 2021. His last fight was against Davison Figueiredo, the current champ, in 2020, November of 2020. And he's 30 years old. He's now a coach at Team Oyama, I guess. But as for his fighting style, he's very aggressive, especially early. A number of first-round finishes. He really throws everything he has into his strikes. Was kind of known as a wrestler before this, but looking more on the feet as of late. As for Alexandre Pantoja, 32 years old. He's got really good Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I think he's one of, if not the best grappler in the flyweight division. Super slick back takes, super slick rolls. He really stays on you. If you're on the ground, seems like he's in great positions all the time. And even if he's not, he just looks so composed. You see it in his past fight against Brandon Royval. He had his in a really weird position with Brandon Royval with the legs. Didn't look phased at all. Fought it off and ultimately got the submission win over him. He's got a win over Brandon Moreno. This was a while ago, but kind of beat the brakes off of Brandon Moreno. But, I said Brandon Moreno's made a lot of improvements since then. Pantoja is a very, very crisp striker as well. He's never been finished either. 8 KOs, 9 subs. And he's an aggressive fighter. He's a very aggressive fighter. And for these flyweights, the speed on these guys is just insane. You'll see it in the Moreno Cara-France fight as well. This for the hands, just super fast. Feet work super fast. Scrambles super fast. This one should be a really exciting fight. I personally would look at, as a betting perspective, I really do like Alexandre Pantoja in this one. I just worry about, I don't necessarily worry about his chin because he's taken some, in his fight against Davis and Figueiredo, he took some really big shots and didn't get knocked out. But I would maybe look at fight to not go the distance. It's sitting at even money right now. The over-under's at 2.5. The under paying out plus 105. That looks pretty interesting to me with the way that Alex Perez fights. He doesn't, like I said, he throws a ton into all of his strikes, and I feel like Pantoja can finish him, but at the same time, it really just depends on if Perez is going to come out and fight the way he does and maybe lure Pantoja into fighting that way. But if it hits the ground, I would give the edge to Pantoja just based off of his BJJ. Alex Perez is a good wrestler, but he's been submitted 4 times. He's been knocked out once. So maybe Pantoja by submission. It's sitting at plus 600 right now. That looks pretty juicy actually. Because I could see Perez, shooting on him. Eventually he's going to shoot. He's shown that in most of his fights. So maybe Pantoja by plus 600. As of now, I don't have anything on it, but that does look pretty juicy now that I'm looking at it. Moving on. Magomed Ankalaev versus Anthony Smith. Ankalaev, only loss is to the one and only Paul Craig. The buzzer beater, 4 minutes and 59 seconds gone in the 3rd round, and Paul Craig gets Ankalaev to tap. That is one that I bet Ankalaev wishes he had back because he was definitely going to win that fight for a decision. 30 years old for him. A lot of people are super high on him. A lot of people think he's the next light heavyweight champ. He's sitting at minus 500 right now. So obviously people think that and people are backing him. His last fight against Thiago Santos was quite the boring fight. For some reason, he, wanted to go 5 rounds. That's what he said after the fight. He said he wanted to get the 5-round experience under his belt. It was a main event. So that is what it is. It's like, why wouldn't you want to make a statement? Try to finish him, make a statement. Maybe you get a even better opponent than Anthony Smith. But as for his competition, I wouldn't say it's the highest. He has wins over, or his 5 on in is Iwan Kutalaba again, Nikita Krylov, Volkan Oezdemir, and then Thiago Santos. A couple big names, I guess. Volkan just got a win recently, last week. Nikita Krylov just got a win last week. But Thiago Santos has like 2 knee replacements, so that wasn't it was a boring fight, and it was not against the greatest opponent. He was like a minus 700 favorite in that one as well. As for Anthony Smith, 33 years old, really a veteran of the sport. He's got 52 pro fights. He's on a three-fight win streak. He's sitting at plus 380. Could have been the light heavyweight champion of the world against John Jones if he would have, pulled the can't fight anymore with the illegal knee. It looked pretty rough. Like it would have hurt pretty bad. A knee to the head from John Jones. But as for his 5 on in, excuse me, Glover Teixeira loss, Alexander Rakic loss, and then Devin Clark win, Jimmy Crute win with the leg injury, the weird leg injury. He was pretty big underdog in that one. And then a win over Ryan Spann as a favorite in a main event. At this point, I feel like the only value here is on Anthony Smith. Being he is such a veteran, he's had so much experience. He's been in super big fights. This is going to be the opener of the main card, I believe. So, crowd's going to be rocking. Smith has been knocked out 9 times, been subbed 4 times. So he's going to come to fight. He's going to come and try to push the fight on Magomed Ankalaev. I'm interested to see how it plays out. I might sprinkle a little something on Anthony Smith, maybe by decision. I know those lines aren't out yet. I don't think. I can check. Oh, it is. Okay. Anthony Smith by points is plus 900. That doesn't sound too bad to me. Maybe he can squeak out 2 rounds against him. I think it's possible. It's very possible with his experience. But for the channel's sake, I'm going to take Magomed Ankalaev. I can't remember if I officially made the pick, but I put I got Alexandre Pantoja in the other one. Moving on, though, after the Ankalaev-Smith fight, you got Alex Morono and Matthew Semmelsberger. Moreno, 31 years old, coming off, I believe, 3 wins. 3-fight win streak. Yep, Donald Cerrone, David Zavada, and then Mickey Gall. All in 2021. He's got a super good overhand right. He's got a really high guard. He keeps his guard up super high. He prefers to stand, but he's got a solid ground game as well. From what I hear, he's a really big student of the game. Coaches as well. And he's got 6 KOs, been knocked out twice. I see this fight going to the distance as well. Against Matthew Semmelsberger, who does have a couple quick finishes in the UFC, but against some pretty low-level opponents. I don't see him knocking out Alex Moreno that fast. Nonetheless, he's 29 years old, crisp striker. Showed really good top control in his last fight against AJ Fletcher. Has been knocked out once, been subbed once. Got 6 KOs on his record. Semmelsberger sitting at a minus 165 favorite right now. Moreno plus 140. Look at the odds. The over-under set at 2.5. Yeah, so they're thinking the same way I am. Fight to go the distance, yes, at minus 155. I don't think that's too rich that I would put anything on it, but I could definitely see it going to the distance. For the sake of the channel, I'm going to take Matthew Semmelsberger. Just a bigger guy. I think he looks super big for the weight class. I know there's obviously bigger people for the weight class, but something about him, it just seems like maybe it's the hair, just very intimidating. But I'll take Matt Semmelsberger. Next fight, Drew Dober versus Rafael Alves. Drew Dober coming off probably one of the craziest first rounds that I've seen in recent memory against Terrence McKinney. McKinney coming off of really short notice and came out guns a-blazing, cracks Drew Dober, has him in real bad trouble, and then ultimately Drew Dober comes back to life and McKinney gasses out, and Drew Dober gets the knockout win in the first round. 33 years old. He's got a really, I mean, you can tell by the picture, he's got a super big chin, so he's got a good chin. Great left hand. He's got knockout power. Super good striker. Trains at Elevation Fight Team, so he's got pretty good cardio. 12 KOs on his record. He's been KO'd once, and then his main flaw in his career has been on the ground. He's got 5 submission wins, but 4 submission losses. Most recent to Islam Makhachev, but you can't be too mad about that, as he's fighting for the title in October. As for Rafael Alves, this dude is like quite the athlete. Super jacked, super thick build. Comes out super aggressive. He can, he doesn't really gas out. I haven't seen him gas out too much. But in his fight against Damir Ismagulov, comes out just same way that Terrence McKinney does, guns a-blazing. Kind of drops him right away, like pretty much right as the fight starts, and then dies on a guillotine, loves to go for the guillotines, and got a guillotine choke win against Mark Jacasey in his last fight. But he dies on the guillotine against Ismagulov, and then ultimately is on his back for the rest of the round, and isn't offensive off his back, and isn't really trying to get up too like urgently. So he can get controlled on his back. As for Drew Dober, I don't really see him wanting to go to the ground. I think he's more of a striker. But it wouldn't doubt me if Drew Dober does get him on his back that he can just keep him there. Alves, 7 KO wins, 3 KO losses, 8 submission wins, and 6 submission losses. So he's going for it like every fight. And this one should be a banger, because as for Drew Dober, knockout power, Alves gonna bring the heat for sure. Both of these guys are like pretty jacked. Alves is like just an insane athlete, freak athlete. So I'm gonna take Drew Dober he's sitting at -220, Alves at +180. I don't have any money on it, but I'm gonna take Drew Dober for the sake of the channel. I'm going to take a look at the over-under in this one. Over-under is at 2.5. Under paying out -165. That's kind of what I was looking at, but that looks maybe a little rich. I don't know. I would maybe look at that later in the week. But right now I'm not going to put anything on it. Next fight, Dante Mays and Hamdi Abdul Wahab. Now, Abdul Wahab has 5 fights in the past year. So he's only been a pro for 5 fights, and he's only been a pro for a year. 2 of them being bare knuckle in Game Bred Fighting Championship. So I've watched most of his fights come by round 1 knockout. So, well, all of his fights come into knockout, but 4 of them come in the first round. And watching these fights, a lot of these guys that he's fighting are pretty trash and very out of shape. Abdul Wahab is a former Olympic wrestler. But I mean, go watch his fights. Matthew Strickland looks like he is should not be as thick as he is. Conor McKenna should not be as thick as he is. And even, I don't know, Abdul Wahab definitely looks like he's the better fighter in all of his fights. That's what I'm trying to say. His competition doesn't look very good. As for Dontel Mays, a 3-time Dana White Contender Series alum, he's going to have a big height advantage. He's going to have an up and down career in the UFC. Hasn't really fought the greatest competition except for Cyril Gane in his debut, which can't be mad about that. He lost via heel hook. But for the rest, now Rodrigo Nascimento, Roque Martinez, and then Josh Parisian, 3 very low level fighters in the UFC. This is a pretty low level heavyweight fight, so it probably will not be getting my money. 30 years old for Dontel Mays, 29 for Abdul Wahab. I'm going to go with a dog in Abdul Wahab. He's sitting at plus 130 right now. Dontel Mays minus 155. It's dog or pass for me. Abdul Wahab's going to have the wrestling advantage. Whether he uses it to take that or not is up to him, and we will see. But just very, very hard to predict these low-level heavyweight fights, and it probably won't be getting any of my money. But like I said, Abdul Wahab's fought 5 times in the past year against pretty shitty competition, but they haven't gone very long, so it's not like he's taking damage. So he's been very active. Maybe that'll help him get a win. Moving on, Drakkar Klose versus Rafe Garcia. Drakkar Klose, really, really crisp striker. 34 years old. He's shown really good submission defense. He's a stand-up guy. But in his fight against Beneil Dariush had his back, and he fought off the rear naked choke really well. So that was good to see, but ultimately does get knocked out by Beneil Dariush. But had Beneil on the ropes, really. He hit him with a lot of good strikes. Beneil Dariush is top of the food chain for the lightweight division. And then in Klose's last fight, won via knockout against Brandon Jenkins. He's 5 KOs on his record, been KO'd once by Beneil Dariush. Can't be too mad about that. As for Rafa Garcia, solid striker as well, but his ground game is kind of where he shines. But he doesn't always push it. He'll stand with you for a while, and then if it hits the ground, he's got 8 submission wins, 1 KO win. So, I mean, he's a very solid finisher on the ground. Klose is sitting at minus 220 right now. Rafa Garcia plus 180. I mean, if it stays standing, it's going to be Drakkar Klose all day. But if it hits the ground, Garcia, I could see Garcia getting something done on the ground. But at the same time, like I said, Klose showed pretty good submission defense. I'm going to go with Drakkar Klose. He took, about 2 years off after the Beneil Dariush fight, and then came back and had that great performance against Brandon Jenkins. So maybe he's made a lot of improvements. I'm going to go with him. I'm going to go with Drakkar Klose. He may be getting some of my money because I feel pretty good about him on the feet. It's just if he gets to the ground, I'm not sure how he's going to fare in that. But very crisp striker, and he's gonna be able to touch Garcia for sure. Next fight, Michael Morales, Adam Fugit. I'm not sure how you say it. Fugit is 33 years old. Coming in on short notice against Michael Morales. He just had a win not too long ago in LFA over Solomon Renfro, where he was a big underdog at plus 350. And if you watch that fight, it was a round one knockout, and he just clips him with a straight right and cracks him right over the chin. But at the beginning of that fight, he threw like 6 or 7 straight high head kicks, just all in a row, right back to back. He loves to use his kicks, especially like a power left kick to the body or to the head, mostly to the head. But he's got 3 KO wins, 1 KO loss, and 3 subs. As for Morales, 23 years old. His last fight was on the main card for the UFC 270 back in January. He had to overcome a good amount of adversity in that fight. Had Trevin Giles on him on the ground, and then also he cracked Morales a couple times, but ultimately Morales was able to withstand that and get the knockout win for himself. He's got 10 KO wins and 1 sub. Undefeated, 23 years old. He's sitting at minus 550 right now. So very, very heavy favorite. Fugit at plus 400. I would have a lot of confidence in Michael Morales, but at this price, I don't necessarily see myself putting any money on him. Over-unders at 1.5. Favoring the under at minus 125. So maybe I would anchor a parlay with him, throw him with another fighter that I like. But at this point, I do not have anyone that I'm eyeing up. But give me Michael Morales in that one for sure. Moving on, Jocelyn Edwards versus Ji-Yeon Kim. Jocelyn Edwards fought less than 2 months ago at 145 against Ramona Pascual. Got the win. Seemed like a pretty easy win. Ramona Pascual's probably on her way out of the UFC pretty soon. But 2 months ago, this fight's gonna be taking place at flyweight 125. So she's coming down 20 pounds. It's 2 weight divisions. She hasn't fought at 125 since 2017. And that is kind of a red flag. So right off the bat, I'm putting Jocelyn Edwards at a disadvantage. But she is a minus 140 favorite at the moment over Ji-Yeon Kim, who has had 3 straight losses, I believe, but they're tough decisions. In her last fight against Priscilla Cachoeira, she outlanded her in significant strikes, quite significantly, but still got the decision loss. I know a lot of people were upset about that one. Same with Molly McCann. I would say Molly McCann won the fight, but it was close. And then a loss to Alexa Grasso, who looks like she is on her way to being a serious contender in the flyweight division. So can't be too mad about that. She's definitely going to have the speed advantage in this one. If you watch Jocelyn Edwards in her last fight, yes, she was at 145, but very, much slower, not really bouncing on her feet. If you watch Ji-Yeon Kim, she's very bouncy, in and out, going to throw a lot. She's going to throw her hands a lot. Not really a sit down on her punches kind of gal, but she's going to throw her hands. She's going to throw her feet. So 32 years old for Ji-Yeon Kim and 26 years old for Jocelyn Edwards. I feel like it's dog or pass here. I feel like Ji-Yeon Kim should be favored in this one. She might be getting some of my money at as an underdog. That is one that I've been eyeing up. But at the moment, I don't have anything on it. But give me Ji-Yeon Kim in that one. Moving on. Nick Negumereanu versus Ihor Potiria. Potiria coming off the Dana White Contender Series where he got a finish via KO. As for his competition before that, it is pretty poor. Fighting on his regional scene, there's not much competition. He's sitting at 20-2 right now, kind of a padded record. I wouldn't say that's the most impressive. But he does have 9 KOs and 6 subs. He's been knocked out once quite a while ago. He looks pretty athletic. Standing at 6'3", not a bad height. As for Nick Negumereanu, he's pretty short for the light heavyweight division, so he's gonna have a disadvantage there. But he's used to that. I feel like he needs to get on the inside, and he's gonna. If once he gets on the inside in his past fights, he has a lot of success. His competition in the UFC hasn't been that great either. Lost to Saperbek Safarov. That was just a weird fight. Saperbek kept putting his hands in the fence, and they were trying to take points to him, but yeah, I don't know. That was just weird. But he lost the fight. He definitely lost the fight, but there were some big positions that Safarov used the fence to get out of. And then Alexa Kamer split decision win over Ike Villanueva, which everyone gets. So there's that. And then a split decision win over Kennedy Nzechukwu, which I would probably have given that to Nzechukwu because I feel like he just did more damage throughout the fight. But Negumereanu's never been finished. 7 KO wins, 3 sub wins. Never been finished. 27 years old, 26 years old for Potiria. I'm going to go with the dog here. Negumereanu sitting at plus 115. Potiria at minus 135. I don't really like either of these fighters, but I'm going to go with Negumereanu just for his UFC experience. And Porteria's just not quite ready, I don't think. Last fight on the card, Orion, Cosi, and the return of Blood Diamond. Blood Diamond. A lot of hype around him in his debut last time out. Lost to Jeremiah Wells. Pretty much got starched from the get-go. Never was able to show people what he has. He's out of City Kickboxing, big friends with Israel Adesanya. But kind of an awkward style kickboxer if you watch some of his fights. Kind of flashy moves. As for his MMA career, he's fought 3 winless fighters before he got to the UFC. So 0-1, 0-1, and 0-1. And he's got a KO win and a sub win and then a decision win. So, he should be just starching these guys if he's UFC material. I guess you got to give that to Potiria in the previous fight I was talking about. He's got a lot of finish wins, so if he's fighting scrubs, he's getting them done within the distance. As for Blood Diamond, he's 2 for 3, I guess. But just not a lot of experience in the octagon. As for Cosi, he got a big underdog win on the Dana White Contender Series, and then in his debut in the UFC, he got knocked out by Phil Rowe. Phil Rowe is a good veteran. You can't be too upset about that. As for his striking, he throws a lot of kind of looping shots. maybe that's just because of the fight he was in, but not the most technical fighter. He's out of Team Alpha Male, so he's probably going to be a pretty decent wrestler. I think that's what he has to do to win this fight. He's got 6 KO wins, 1 KO loss, and 1 sub. 28 years old for Cosi, 34 years old for Blood Diamond. I am going to go with the younger fighter here in Cosi. He's sitting at -175, Diamond at +125. So give me Cosi. I just feel like he has more potential in the UFC. To me, it feels like the UFC just kind of did a favor for Izzy with bringing in his friend Blood Diamond. He's 34 years old. He only has 4 professional MMA fights, so I don't really see what they could do with him. So I feel like he's just here just as a favor. For Orion Cosi, he's got a little bit, it could be something, maybe. Potential there. Not a ton, I don't see. But I'm going to take Cosi. I don't foresee myself putting any money on it. But if I do, like I said, I'm going to try to put all my plays on TikTok because it won't be in the YouTube video. So if you look at the full card from top to bottom, I got Nunes, Moreno, Pavlov, Pantoja, Ankalaev, Semmelsberger, Dober, Abdulwahab, Close, Morales, Kim, Mariano, and Cosi. So, if I can hit the full card like I did last week in the Bellator 283, I should be sitting pretty. But what are the odds I do that? Pretty slim. I have done that once in my betting career where I got the full card right, but it was only 10 fights. There was only 10 fights on the card that night, and I didn't put too much on it, so I didn't win much on it. But the only bet I have right now is Sergey Pavlovich on the money line. I'll definitely put more into this card. I'm not sure if I'll be able to watch it live because I'll be down in Florida celebrating my friend's birthday, so I probably won't be able to watch it live, but I'll definitely watch back the fights. I'm not sure if I'll be able to put together a recap for you guys because I get back Tuesday, and at that point I'm probably just gonna put out a preview of my predictions for Santos and Jamal Hill the Saturday after that. So let me know who you guys are picking down in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. Hit the like button. Shoot me a subscription. Follow me on TikTok at HeyJaiPicks. And should be a good card. A lot of good. I could see a lot of violence on this card, and should be exciting. Hopefully, I'll get to watch a little bit. But if I don't, I will definitely rewatch it because it'll be a good card. So, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.